Therefore the Lord left those nations right around Israel without driving them out, and neither did he deliver them into the hand of the judges. So, if the Lord did that to the people that he struggled with all the way through the wilderness wanderings and made a nation, even after Joshua drove out all those nations so that the Israelites could inhabit the land flowing with milk and honey, they transgressed, and he has decided to test them. So see, the Lord tests his people. That's what's coming now with the beast. This exact thing. It's going to be a little more widespread because it's going to be worldwide, because people are all over the world. They're not contained in a little nation there next to the Mediterranean. They're everywhere. So now this guy is going to have to rule the entire world, because he's going to have to test the Christian. Because the Lord said that through these other nations I may test them. So these other nations are actually a servant to the Lord. They're doing his work. They're testing the hearts of his people to see whether those people are going to keep his commandments and call on him and repent of their ways, which is exactly what we need to do. Now, I know this may seem a little bit scary, and maybe it is scary. I guess I don't really like it all that much either, you know, but it is what the Lord has said, and we can trust that if he said it, he'll do it. And he said a lot of things. He's not going to leave us, but that doesn't mean that you should bury your head in the sand about the testing that's coming. This is a very important matter, and ignoring it is going to get you in trouble, because then you're going to be thrown right in the midst of it to test your heart at a time when it's very, very difficult for you to come around. Now, you may think you're okay, that everything's fine, and you may be, and that's great. I have no clue. But I know that I've been in the Christian churches long enough, and I've talked to many, many Christians, and they don't feel that the Lord ever would test them for any reason, and yet he did it to his people. And he did it to people that he made a great nation of, that he hid them in Egypt for all those years till they became a nation. And then finally, of course, the Egyptians were a little nervous, and God had to get them out of there, otherwise they were going to be, they were probably going to be all killed eventually, because they were being heavily oppressed at the time. So even after all of that, feeding them, guiding them, and then destroying all these nations so that they could have this land, he decides to send a fire on them and test them. What do you think he's going to do to us? The same thing. It's coming. That's what the beast is coming for. The beast is not coming to take away all the unbelievers. God already knows what's going to happen to them. There's a judgment coming. Their fate is sealed. Their destiny is assured. But us, he's going to test our hearts because we call on his name. And if we're not doing what he says, we're making him a laughingstock. So he's got to get honor back and respect back for his name. Because right now we're making him look terrible. And you think he's going to put up with that? No, he's not. And who would? Would your boss? If you disrespect your boss often enough, what's he do? He's going to fire you. He'll probably discipline you a few times before that. You know, send you home with a 3-day vacation without pay, write you up a few times. You know, our bosses do it to us. And we'll even look at our bosses and we'll say, man, you know, if you hadn't done that for me, I wouldn't be the person I am right now. Thank you for being honest with me. Well, why don't we do that with the Lord? Why don't we say this test is a good thing? It's going to be hard. It's not going to be fun at all. I mean, there's terrible things coming about this test. Most horrible things you've ever seen. And we'll get into that later. I just wanted to lay the groundwork here for the fact that the Lord, is going to test his people, because he did it here. And again, after the Canaanites were driven out, the children of the Lord did evil in the sight of God and served other gods, and therefore the anger of the Lord was hot against him, and he gave them into the hand of the king of Mesopotamia, and they served him for 8 years. 8 years later, children of Israel cried to the Lord. The Lord raised up a judge and delivered them. The land had rest for 40 years after that. And again the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they did evil in the sight of the Lord. And he gathered to him the children of Ammon and Amalek, and smote Israel, and possessed the city, and they served him for 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried to the Lord raised them up a deliverer, Ehud. Ehud killed the king of Moab, and the land had rest for 80 years.